everyone. I hope you've had a great week. This week, we're going to talk through lessons 93 to 96. So let's get started. This week, you're going to need your lessons manual, the student worksheet book, the math card games manual with the game cards, the Casio SL450S calculator, the colored marker, which is not included in your Right Start Math supplies, a dry erase board. You'll want to get a map of the US, which again is not included in the Right Start Math materials, one colored tile, 1 centimeter cube, the 4-in-1 ruler, and a meter stick. This week, your child is going to continue working on graphs, and they will also have a review and games day. Let's start by turning to lesson 93. Now, the warm-up is the top part of worksheet 73. Now, this lesson is going to use the corners game to complete the graph on worksheet 73. Your child has played corners before, but if you need a reminder of how to play, we also have a blog for that game, and it's called Winter Games Corners. Now, before you start the game, you first need to set up the table. Explanations on how to set up the table is under the section called Worksheet 73. Now, on the top of the second page of the lesson, you're going to see how the graph is going to be set up. Now, the scores are listed for you on the left side of the graph. And because the only scores that can be used in this particular game are 0, 5, 10, 15, and 20. That's where you list the scores. Now, your child may title each of these segments a little bit different from how the lesson manual has, and that's just fine. Once the graph is set up, you can go ahead and start playing the game. Now, after each play, you're going to mark the graph with what the score is. So, for example, if the player puts together 2 cards that total 10, then they're going to color in the 10. So let me show you what I mean. So here is the graph. And so if they get a score of 10, and this is the first play, they're going to color in that first square of the 10. And let's say the next player totals 5 on their score. So then you're going to go ahead and color in that first 5 square. If the next player plays and they also get a 10, then you're going to go to the second box of the 10 and color that in. They've already colored in the first box, so now you're going to color in that second box. Have your child continue recording those scores until the game is over. Then your child will calculate the score. Take a look at the section called Calculating the Score. The manual shows the score being calculated using multiplication. If your child can use multiplication, then definitely encourage your child to do so. A lot of these numbers are going to be multi-digit multiplication. And if you want to review how that's done, you can review lessons 61 and 62. Now take a look at the section called Checking Scores with a Calculator. Here you're going to have your child use the memory functions on the calculator. Now we have used this calculator before using the function keys. If you need to review how to use the function keys, you can look at lesson 42. Now, if your child is still learning and working on those multiplication math facts, pick another game that will help your child improve their multiplication math skills. All right, well, let's go ahead and turn to lesson 94. The warm-up is actually the top section of worksheet 74. Take a look at the section called Reading Number Lines. You're going to start with a number line numbered 0 to 10. And you're going to label this population in hundreds. That means each number on this line is representing 100. So 1 is equal to 100, 2 is equal to 200, 3 is equal to 300, and so forth. You're going to ask your child to find various numbers on the number line. You will then put arrows at various sections on that number line. And then you're going to have your child write down what number that arrow is pointing to. Now, all of the arrows are in between the numbers. So your child may not have the exact number that's listed in your lesson manual as the answer. For example, your child may say that the number that the last arrow is pointing to is 980 instead of 990. That's close, so that's going to work. However, if your child writes down something like 950, which should be right in the middle of 9 and 10, then you're going to want to help your child see that it's not, that arrow is not right in the middle between 9 and 10. It's closer to that 9 or to that 10. So the number needs to be closer to the 1,000 than it is to the 900. You will then change the title of the number line to thousands, population in thousands. So in this in this line, 1 is going to equal 1,000, 2 is going to equal 2,000. You will then ask several questions to help them learn to read this new graph. Keeping the arrows in the exact same place, have your child write down the numbers that that arrow would be pointing to. Again, those numbers do not need to be exact. However, you want to make sure that the numbers are in a close proximity of what the answers are. Again, if your child puts something like 9,500 for the 9,900 arrow, explain how the arrow is closer to the 10,000 than it is the 9,000. So we need to have that number quite a bit higher. Now, if you feel your child needs more practice, feel free to add extra arrows, simply to have your child find various numbers on that line. You want your child comfortable with reading graphs. Once again, you're going to change the number line to population in millions, and you're going to do similar equations. Now take a look at the section called Worksheet 74. Now, before your child starts this worksheet, you're going to ask various questions as listed in the lesson manual to get familiar with that graph. Then your child will complete the worksheet. On the worksheet, your child is going to look at the graph and answer the questions listed on the worksheet. Now, take a note, problems 5 and 8. For those questions, those answers may vary. This worksheet is also going to be needed for lesson 95, so keep it handy. Don't put it away, keep it out. There is not a specific math card game listed for this lesson, so make sure you pick a game that will help your child learn or get stronger with their multiplication math facts. All right, well, let's go ahead and turn to lesson 95. If your lesson manual was printed in 2016 or before, there is a correction for this lesson. So you're going to want to go back and check our website and make the necessary changes to this lesson prior to teaching. For this lesson, it would be helpful if you have the map of the United States showing the states. You will also need a colored tile. It doesn't matter what color you use or what you choose. You will need the centimeter cube. You will need the 4-1 ruler or another ruler. And you will also need the folding meter stick or any meter stick. Now, when you use the folding meter stick, you first fold it out and then you fold it, or you stretch it across like that. All right, for this lesson or the warm-up, you're again going to do the top part, have your child do the top part of worksheet 75 as the warm-up. Now take a look at the section called Reviewing Area and Worksheet 74. Here you're going to ask questions about the graph that you used in worksheet 74. Take a look at the section called Units of Area. In this section, you're going to ask your child if they can measure area with inches or centimeters. Now, this might be a little confusing at first because when we calculate area of a shape, let's say I have a shape here, we do measure the sides of the area and we multiply that together, right? However, we cannot use inches, linear inches or centimeters to measure the inside of this shape, right? Now, the next set of questions is going to ask if you can measure the area with square inches, like this tile or a centimeter cube. And yes, you can measure this area by filling in the space with those two manipulatives. Now, the last paragraph on that first page of the lesson is going to have your child look at the ruler, and you're going to tell them that 12 inches is 1 foot. Now, if you have 4 rulers, you are going to build a square foot as shown in the top of the second page of the lesson. If you do not have 4 rulers, you can have your child imagine what a square foot would look like by just looking at the one ruler. And then you can move it around to the 4 different sides. And then what I did with my kids is I would have this on top and I'd put a book up here, and then I would move it over here and then put a book over there, down here, and then over here, so that I had an empty square foot showing for them. Now, the first paragraph on the second page of the lesson has your child using the meter stick and considering what a square meter would look like. Then you're going to ask questions. Would a square meter be large enough to measure the area of a state in the United States? Now, this question is asking about the entire state, like North Dakota or Ohio or whatever state you live in. In fact, I would recommend that you use the name of the state that you currently live in. Now, while you could technically measure a state with meters, it would be extremely inefficient and difficult and very large number. So even if your child says yes, that you can measure a state using square meters, you're going to want to explain that that would be extremely difficult and time consuming to actually measure an entire state in meters. At that point, you're going to introduce the measurement of miles and then square miles. Now, in the section called square miles, if your child is familiar with acres, you can also tell them that 640 acres will fit into 1 square mile. At that point, you're going to give your child worksheet 75, have them fill in the titles around the graph. Now, this graph is going to compare the area of 8 different states. To complete this worksheet, your child is going to need to reference worksheet 74. There is a suggested math card game for this lesson called Rows and Columns, which you have played before. You can also choose to pick or play another game that will focus on your child's specific struggles or interests. If they have their multiplication math facts down, go ahead and play another game reviewing fractions or subtraction or addition or whatever you feel like they might need. All right, let's go ahead and turn to lesson 96. Now, this is a review and games lesson. Make sure you only give your child one of the 2 worksheets, either 76A or 76B. If your child does really well on this review lesson, go ahead and move on to the next lesson on your next math lesson day. If your child struggles on this worksheet or parts of this worksheet, discuss their errors. Find out why they made the mistake. Remember, you're looking for understanding. If your child made a silly calculation mistake, something that they know, that you know that they know, go ahead and move on. But if your child does not understand something, you're going to want to go back. If it was something that your child might have forgotten or seems a little unsure on, again, go back, review some previous lessons or segments of lessons as needed. Now, if you need to go back to previous lessons and review material, make sure they understand the material before you move on. Then, if you wish, you can give your child later on the second worksheet, 76B or 76A, whichever worksheet you did not finish. Just make sure that you don't give the second worksheet the same day that they do their review. Allow some time to elapse before giving the next worksheet, just to make sure that that material is completely understood in their long-term memory, not just in their short-term. Just as I usually do, I'm going to go through all of the problems on this particular worksheet and let you know what lesson numbers you can review with your child if you need to go back and review some lessons. So if your child struggled with problem 1, which is 400 times 30, you can review lessons 19, 61, and 62. For problem 2, which is 60 times 4, review lessons 61 and 62. For problem 3, which is 81 divided by 9, play games to work on their multiples of 9. For problem 4, which is 625 plus 175, you can take a look at lessons 5 and 6 or work on their addition math facts. For problem 5, which is 56 divided by 7, play card games to work on their multiples of 7. For problem 6, which is 80 times 5, review lessons 61 and 62, or play games to work on their multiples of 5. For problem 7, which is 5,805 times 8, review lessons 63, 64, and 65. Or if you want to help them with their check numbers, you can review lessons 65. Or you can review their multiplication math facts if that was their struggle. For problem 8, which is 5,482 minus 1,956, review lessons 8 and 9 for their subtraction skills, or review lesson 60 for check numbers. For problems 9 through 11, which are the graph questions, review lessons 91, 92, 93, 94, and 95. For problems 12 through 25, which are those multiples patterns, review lessons 83 and 84. For problem 26, which is the word problem, and this is really more of a comprehension problem. So if your child has difficulties, you may want to review part whole circles. You can also review the calendar in lessons 89 and 90. That's supposed to be 90. Or they can review their multiples of 2. The math card game for this lesson is Ring Around the Products game, which you have played previously. Also, we have a blog for that on our website so that you can review it. Well, that's it for the week. If you have any questions or concerns about a lesson, or if your child is struggling with something, give us a call or email us. We're here to help. I look forward to seeing you next week as we cover lessons 97 to 100. Have a great week, everybody.